welcome to Flow Tricks. It is Ken. How's it going? Bam! As you can see, my portal to my home world is almost complete. When it's done, I'm going to disappear. Not really. Anyways, it's Ken from Flow Tricks. Today, we're going to talk a little bit, I'm not going to call it philosophy, but it's your approach to spinning. So it is a lecture. Oh, I know, lectures. Ken already talks too much, but I love talking, so there you go. On top of that, just keep in mind that when I do have time to make videos, I first make Patreon videos. I make one a week for Patreon always. So even if there's a lack of YouTube videos, fresh YouTube videos, you have like 10 years of YouTube videos you can watch behind. Or if you do want some new ones, or you want to just keep exciting different brain muscles for nunchucks, definitely check out my Patreon page, /flowtricks, patreon.com/flowtricks. Today, I want to talk about something really that I feel is very important, and I rarely talk about it just because it's hard to describe, but the last 10 years of my YouTube videos, you mostly get the how. And performers mostly want to know the how, or spinners mostly want to know the how. How do I do the next move? And then you do the move, right? Wow, I get this move done. Oh, I can do rips now. This is great. And then what do is their how moves to the very next move. A lot of times with spinning, this is ambiguous amount of techniques everywhere. You can grab some from Ken, you can grab some from this random guy on the internet. Hey, this guy does something that Ken absolutely doesn't do. Oh my gosh. And if I get all these things, I'll be better than all of them. Okay, you may not say that, but in your brain is thinking more is better, right? So you're grabbing all these things, but one thing you may be forgetting is that if you grab too much too fast, it'll become more shallow. What I'd like you to think about is the purpose of why you spin in the first place, because we all have different reasons. I don't know your reasons. And this is why this becomes a lecture, because I have no clue why you're spinning. I mean, you could be wanting to be a performer. You could be wanting to do this for your mental health, or you may want to be a spinner. You want to impress your friends. You want to impress a girl or a guy or your dog. I don't know. That's probably really easy to impress your dog. You just throw the chucks out in the yard and chase it and bite it and gnaw it down. There's just different reasons why people do spinning, but then they get caught up in this whirlwind of the how, and there's a pitfall to that. And the pitfall is if you're not feeding the why correctly, it can hinder you later on. I'll give you an example. Someone has very low self-esteem. They're very hard on themselves, have a lot of anxiety, have a lot of depression. They start spinning and they start feeling this connection that they never had. So they start feeling full of pride, right? They finally figured out who they are through spinning, and that is the most beautiful thing. But then what happens is they start looking at the how instead of the why. So they're thinking, I need more techniques because it makes me feel good. I feel like I'm advancing as I grab more. So they start grabbing all these techniques. And later on, they start looking at other people and comparing themselves. Now, a lot of things can happen when you're not conscious of this. One is you can start comparing yourself and negatively compare yourself to someone who is better. And then you think, oh, I'm not as good as this guy. But since your self-esteem depends on you to be good at spinning because that's your focus, all of a sudden you feel less of a person because you're comparing yourself to someone else. This is a dangerous loophole that must be seen because it's imaginary, it's not true. You really have to take a look at why you're doing what you do. So if you start comparing yourself, and here's another thing that happens, and you can see this you see this too. This can turn you into a toxic person if you approach it this way. What was once a beautiful release can turn you into a toxic person. Another example is you see someone else that does something differently, or they're not very good, and what happens? You laugh at them, or you feel like, oh, I'm so much better than them. Or you watch a performer on stage and you think, oh, I could have done that. Why am I not up there? Your mindset will start to shift. And it's not that you should say, well, I shouldn't think like that. Instead, figure out why you thought like that. It's the why again. Why did you think like that? Because your self-esteem depends on you to be a really great spinner. And somewhere down the line, you made it known that you have to become this great spinner. So you start comparing and you start pulling in so that way you can keep feeling it. So you can feel like someone, and it's this endless black hole of trying to get better, comparing yourself to make yourself feel better. All of a sudden you're putting people down. There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of pitfalls that can happen with that. And so even if I taught you 1,000 techniques, it may make you a jerk. It may make you worse. It may make you intolerable because your focus, you just didn't put into clarity why you're doing it in the first place. So if you're looking for self-esteem, maybe what would be good is just to focus on the feelings that it gives you, and instead of trying to pick up new techniques, focus on how you can connect with it inside. And when I say connect with it, I just mean like you have a feeling. Maybe you feel lonely, and maybe you can spin and put that into your spinning style. Now that may sound kind of crazy, but it's not, because that's what authors do with words. When authors start writing a book, or when they start writing words, they're not looking at each individual word, they're looking at how it all flows together to create a feeling. And it's the same thing with chucks or any kind of flow prop too. If you start looking at how you can release your feelings through movement, and so you're not thinking about techniques so much anymore, but you're thinking about how to make this connection between what's inside of me, how do I feel, and how do I let it out. Now this is not as a performer yet, but this can help you as a performer with raw stage presence, but it's not necessarily going to make you the best performer, and I'll explain that soon in a second too. So how can I get this out, and how can I get these feelings out in this movement? And so you have to start thinking in terms of being an author as opposed to being this guy that has a great deal of knowledge of a lot of techniques. I mean, you can do it that way. Don't get me wrong. Just be careful you don't become a lawyer because of it. Make sure that you're not so fixated on the techniques and the way that things are that you forget that the whole point of this is to express yourself. Because that can cause you to basically become like this car crash emotion. Like you'll get more pent up, and you're going to need to keep grabbing more. And it's just like a black hole. Now let's talk about, so that is how I would describe why it's important to look. It's very important to look at the direction that you're headed, because if you're doing this blindly, you may very well face head on and become that jerk that I was talking about without even realizing it. You just step back and say, wow. Why am I like negatively comparing these people, or like making myself feel like crap because this guy's better? Like, he worked hard, he deserves it, you know, and that performer up there, they deserved it, they work hard, you know? I don't know anything. Like, obviously life's not fair. But why do I need it to be more fair for me for this particular moment? Well, because you needed it to feel good about yourself. So look at that. If we're talking about a performer, it's clear. You want to be clear because how you spin is going to be a little bit different. Again, when we're talking about story writing, I was talking about that earlier. When you're writing a story, but you're doing it for your feelings, you're doing this for yourself. That's more like writing a journal, to be honest. You can scribble out whatever you want. You can hunch over. You can be introverted. You don't have to look at anything. But if you feel your soul connected with what you're doing, boom, you are good. But as a performer, it's less about how things feel to you and how things look to them. A matter of fact, if you can translate that feeling of how does it feel when you're spinning alone, and if you can translate the same feelings you get but present it in how you look, then you have this relationship as a performer that I feel like is equally powerful. Now, obviously, it's more than look, because that's how you sync to music. It's the eye connection that you make. It's the way that I talk. You know, I could use these same words, but I could just be talking monotone and not have any body movement at all or any expression. It would be a very different kind of video. Like, the video would just get droning and boring, right? Even the speed that I talk will show enthusiasm, or it'll just kind of show boredom. Even though it's the same words, my facial expression and my body movement say so much. The way that I talk and inflect say so much. And what are you doing? What are you doing when you are recording yourself? Are you just talking in one tone? Are you saying one thing? Or are you inflecting, and are you taking bits and pieces of all different kinds of things, but running it almost like a roller coaster, so it smoothly rides around, and you're creating this giant world for someone to experience, making it alive. The big question that I would say is, how do you make your spinning breathe? How do you make it like a thing that's bigger than yourself, that is an expression of yourself, but something more realistic? And by breathing, I just mean it's not mechanical. So I'm not just going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. One, and you know what I'm saying? Like, if I did this when I was performing, it's just kind of too regimented, too rigid. It's not saying anything, you know? And even the way that you look. So I could go into that forever. Like, I could talk about performance and how I've cut out a lot of, like, if you watch my old videos, I was very technical and I had a lot of moves. But now I've kind of cut it down to the ones that I feel express me as a person the most to the audience in the most relatable way. So when I perform, you'll notice that I haven't picked up a whole lot of new moves, but my why for why I do the moves that I do has deepened greatly. And because of that, I feel more connected. My audience feels connected. It's huge. It's a vast difference than me just throwing out random moves like I used to. In the old days, I just wanted to be fast and I wanted a lot of different moves to shock and awe people. But nowadays, I wanted to say something. I wanted to have some meaning. Even if the audience doesn't know any of the meaning, I know it. So I'm connected to it. And the audience will still feel something from that, even if it's very subtle. It's that indescribable something or another. So my recommendation to you today is just stop with the how. You can go back to it and you can watch all 10 years of my videos and get all my techniques. But I want you to just understand, why are you learning these moves? Why are you learning this new move? Is it going to make you better towards your goal? Or is it just another tool that you may not even need to use? You ever just look around your house and look at all the stuff that you bought but you never even use? It has no meaning, no use. I want this, it's $500 and it sits over there in the corner, right? With your, and yeah, maybe someday you're gonna want it, but you just have to see, like, what can you use in your daily tool set that actually mean things, like things that you know you'll use 5 years from now or 10 years from now. That, in my opinion, should be your foundations. Of course, you can always throw icing on the cake. You can always get more moves, and I think that's fantastic. But think really hard about your foundations and why you spin in the first place, and build a strong fortress there. You can build out from there as much as you want, but then you can also tear those parts down, but keep that core very solid, because that is what makes you an artist for life. My sermon is done. I hope you all have a good time. And yeah, if you have any questions, send me a message. I'll talk to you all soon. I hope this helps. Even if it just helps one person, just think about their spinning. I'm happy that I made it, because to me, this is very important. I did not spin because I wanted to learn a bunch of moves, or I wanted to become famous, or I wanted to be known for something. I did it because I needed to say something. And just like I have something to say now. So, all right, talk to y'all soon.